Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
You know, we've done a ton of episodes on what to expect or how to more effectively perform various positions in a dental practice, from the office manager job to scheduling to the treatment coordinator position to finance and so on. But what about the job of practice/business owner? Is there more to being a business owner than just owning a business? Of course there is. Just like any other position in a practice, the owner position comes with specific duties, responsibilities, and most importantly, expected results. And that's what we want to cover in this week's episode. My name is Jeff Blumberg, and I'm your host, and I'll be joined by Sabri Blumberg, the Deputy Chief Operating Officer here at MGE. I think we have you hooked up there, Sabri.
I am.
Now, just as a little bit about Sabri. I'm going to embarrass you here. No, I'm kidding. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know who Sabri is and what she does. But here at MGE, she's the Deputy Chief Operating Officer, and she's in charge of all of MGE's technical delivery. She's the most experienced, seasoned, and trained technical person here at the company, and she's worked with several thousand clients to excellent results. So I'm glad to have you on this week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Of course. And what we're going to cover is we're talking about, because when you go over the idea of the owner job with just about every MGE client.
Right.
And I know that you have 6 basic things that you consider sort of the irreducible minimum.
Right.
And that's what we're going to hit on today, because we could spend hours talking about this, everything you'd expect of an owner, right?
Sure.
Okay. But it's interesting, when you mentioned this to me,
Yeah.
I noticed we didn't have it in any of our blog posts. It's
No.
never been on the podcast. We've never made a video about it.
Right.
So I'm actually really glad we're covering this.
Yeah, me too.
All right, fair enough. So I think we just jump right in.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got the 6 things. I know that the first one you go over is the most important. So what is that?
First and most important function of the owner is to appoint somebody to run the business.
Okay, so
In this case, an office manager.
Okay, now would they have to get that person functioning too?
Of course. So
Okay.
if I take a look at what is the main product of the business owner, it's to get a fully functioning, productive, competent office manager.
Interesting.
Right. And to run that office manager, because if you take a look at division of labor, it's the office manager's job, right? Which is really, office manager, business, equivalent term for that would be CEO.
Okay.
Right? Is to make the business expanding and profitable. So that is the job of the office manager.
Okay.
To
Now
expand the business and make sure that it's profitable.
I'm going to ask a silly question.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the answer to this, but I think it's worth pointing up. But why wouldn't the doctor be the CEO?
Because usually they're doing dentistry.
Okay.
So that means that I have nobody doing it. So the owner is trying to do it, but really we're just pretending we're doing it because it's a big job.
Right.
And it involves hiring staff, training staff, correcting staff, making sure that production targets are laid out for the month and that these targets are actually being met, that the marketing is consistent, internal and external,
Right.
And effective and cost effective. And I could go on and on.
Right. Of course.
Right. So, and if you do those jobs badly, right, it's tremendously expensive for the business.
Right.
I mean, even something as dumb as like the phone isn't being answered properly and the leads that are coming in from your marketing are not converting properly, which is a huge problem in dentistry.
That's true.
Right? Like 3 out of 4 calls that come in that could potentially be new patients are wasted.
That's true.
Right? And that's just bad training, bad procedures, bad protocol on the front desk. But you can't be watching that when you're in the back doing dentistry.
Right. You're not going to do that between the root canal and 2 crowns you're prepping next.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So when I say a fully functioning office manager, I'm not talking about somebody that files your insurances for you.
Okay.
I'm talking about somebody that's running the business.
Understood.
And it is the way that I judge whether the owner of the practice did a good job is I look at the office manager.
Oh.
Because that's their product.
Okay.
Right? Did you get the product of creating an office manager? And when I use the word creating, I use that quite deliberately because you're not just going to hire an office manager.
Well, I think that's half the problem, not to go too much into the office manager job. But
Right.
It really depends on what office you're in. It's like treatment coordinator.
Yes.
So-and-so is the office manager. 2 offices, office manager can mean 2 completely different things.
Right.
Whereas I know that we have a very specific, narrow definition for it, which is exactly what you're explaining.
Correct. And unfortunately, in dentistry, that position doesn't really exist. You're not just going to hire somebody to do that.
Right.
Therefore, you have to make it. You have to create this hybrid between somebody who understands the systems of dentistry and understands dentistry itself and how to make money in dentistry, and at the same time deliver an excellent product to the patients, right? Combined with the business sense on how do you make a business profitable and how do you utilize staff and how do you utilize the resources of the business in order to create more.
So you need an executive who is familiar with dentistry, essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's can you find it? I'm sure you can.
Yeah, but then again, there's always the concept where, and I think everybody's had this experience.
Yeah.
You hire somebody that's supposed to be good at collections. They were the treatment coordinator for ABC Dental across town.
Yes.
And everybody's raving about this person.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really know about them till they come work for you.
That's right.
You don't know, are they consistently productive? What are their
Correct.
idiosyncrasies? How do they operate under pressure if there's a lot going on? You don't know
Right.
any of that stuff till you've actually worked with the person.
That's right.
So I think that's always the danger when you're hiring somebody. Yeah, that's why I think I've kind of gone both ways on that in the sense of, because I remember we used to hire somebody and I'd be really pumped and thinking, oh, it's going to be great. This person's going to handle this, that, and the other thing. And then you get them on board and you go, wow, this is a real disappointment. So
That's
then I
right.
did the flip of that. This was, during my growth phase as an executive. Then you hire somebody else and you're just expecting nothing.
Right.
Because, then it's like, don't reach for the stars. It's like, don't have any goals. This way they won't be disappointed.
That's right.
That's
It's
also
terrible.
not good.
Right.
But now I'm always of the mind that I'm very positive about somebody we hire.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't hire them.
Yeah.
But I'm positive, but I wouldn't use the word guarded, but I want to see, can they do it?
Right.
Yeah.
You bring them up gradiently while you learn what the person is capable of doing and where they're missing training.
Right.
And then seeing if they're trainable, because not everybody's trainable.
That's the most important thing to me.
Right.
Because I've trained a lot of people, just
Right.
as you have too. And you know I've trained a lot too. It's the most important thing is, can they absorb and do?
Right. But that brings up an interesting point, and that means that if the owner is responsible for the office manager and the functioning and training of that office manager, they need to know themselves what they're doing as
Well, how are
an
they going to
executive.
train them otherwise?
Right, or how you're going to have proper supervision. There's going to be zero supervision if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I think the supervision thing is interesting.
Yeah.
But also, if I go, let's say you have some kid walks out of school with, a bachelor's in business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have their business degree and they're going to go work for some big corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that they have a grounding. And most of the time, like I've talked to HR folks at these big corporations, the bigger thing for them with a degree is not what they got out of it necessarily, but the fact that they were able to stick around in college for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, to me, all a degree means is you have the right to learn that field now.
Yeah, because most of the time when they're bringing these folks in, they're going to have to teach them from the ground up what everything is. But at least if they have a bachelor's in business, they know what a balance sheet is. So that helps. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They know what resources are.
Correct.
So, but you have to bring them up the line anyway.
Yeah, now
so
you have to
there's,
teach them.
But the reason I bring that up is there's formal training and then there's an understanding of what somebody's doing.
Right,
So,
what actually works in the real world.
Right. And that's why we're real insistent on training the doctor and the OM.
Right.
Because, yeah, we'll do the formal training with the office manager, but you're going to have to show them how things work in your practice.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And until the doctor has an office manager, they are responsible for those functions themselves.
Right.
Right. And it's not realistic that they're going to be able to do a good job doing that because of time constraints, even if they are fully trained to do these things.
Right.
But they do need to make sure that they do these things, but then work very quickly to get an office manager in place.
Right. Otherwise, I'm robbing the practice of my potential productivity.
Well, you're going to be working your butt off as a doctor, and what you're going to end up creating is a doctor working very, very hard with a bunch of people helping them.
Right.
Instead of an organization where everybody's like pushing the wheel.
Now, let me ask you, not to go off on this too much.
Yeah.
But so let's say I'm a doc, and I know you have 5 other points you want to cover here.
Yeah.
But I just want to explore this a little further.
Sure.
So I'm the doctor, and I've hired an office manager,
Yeah.
and they're doing a great job, and we've built the practice up, and now
Yeah.
we have some associates.
Yes.
So I'm not really needed chairside anymore.
Right.
So wouldn't I become the CEO at that point?
Well, you can.
But
Right. But what I wouldn't do is if I have a fully functioning office manager that did a great job, it'd be really dumb to bump them off that position
Yeah,
because
that-
suddenly you want the title.
right. I mean, maybe
Right.
I might spend more time doing other things, or I might help be the face of the practice and market the practice a bit, or
right, or open a second practice
good
since this
point.
one's going so well. Like there's different things you can do. You can always expand your game.
right?
Right, but you don't degrade the office manager's participation in what you have created by taking their job away from them.
Okay, good. Good. So I'm the doc. If I'm doing what you're saying, I get my fully functioning producing office manager. So my office is being run now.
Yes.
So now, what else? You got 5 other things that you consider to be the irreducible minimum. What's the second thing you would see me
You
doing?
have to provide policy.
Okay.
Right. So the office manager's job, or one of the office manager's functions, is to enforce the policy of the owner. Right. Not to make the policy of the owner.
Got it.
Or for the practice. Right. And policy formulation is a job of the owner.
Now, and I'll just give you the data I get. So when I lecture and I go over this, like telling our clients, look, you have to write policy. I definitely see a bit of, it's like, they're dentists, not writers, right?
Yeah.
That's the flow I get back.
Yes.
It's so overwhelming. There's so many things I have to write down and whatever. And, I guess that my advice to those folks always is 2 things. One, they don't have to be written as if it was written by like F. Scott Fitzgerald.
No, you're not trying to win a Pulitzer.
Yeah, you're just writing something that's readable and understandable.
Right.
And the second thing is if you start now and they write 2 policies a week.
Yeah.
After a year, you got 100 policies.
Yeah.
After 5 years, you got 500 policies.
That's right. And it doesn't, it could just be, this is how I want this done. This is how I want the phone answered.
Right.
And I don't care if they record it on their iPhone and give it to the office manager to type up.
Yeah, good point.
Right. If you want to get something done, you can always get it done. You might have to get a little bit
Ingenuitive.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Saw you doing that there, grabbing
So
it. So
struggling
throw it
with
out
that
there.
word.
We do know each other if you didn't know.
Right. Right. So there's always a way to solve these things, right? And you can take 5 minutes a day and say something in your phone, and your office manager can take 5 minutes a day and write something up. And that could just be, first thing in the morning, you unlock the door, you get the messages from the answering service or off your answering machine, whatever you're using, and clean up the reception area and water the plants.
Got it.
All right, good. We got a basic
like
policy for
opening
reception.
policy.
Right.
Turn on the sound system, blah, blah, blah.
Right, and we're done. 5 lines.
Yeah,
right?
interesting.
So it doesn't have to, but you do need to provide policy because that's the agreement that all your staff functions on. And if you don't provide policy, your office manager has nothing to correct your staff with.
Right. It also, not to cut you off, sorry
Yeah.
about that, but it's sort of the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, that was what I was going to ask you next. Sorry, as I so rudely interrupted. Let's say the office manager is pretty sharp.
Yes.
And they're really down in the trenches. So they're doing all the, let's say they don't have a treatment coordinator yet.
Yeah.
So they're doing all the financial stuff and whatever. And they have some really good ideas. Let's say they don't have an internal financial policy.
Yeah.
Would you be against the office manager drafting a policy?
Absolutely not.
But you would want the doc to approve it.
Absolutely. Anybody can propose policy.
Sure.
Right? But only the owner can approve policy.
Got it.
So you still need to do that job. You can't just go, whatever you want.
Right. That makes sense. Makes sense. All right. So that's number 2. So we
Yes.
got fully functioning office manager and developing policy. What's point number 3?
Well, you have to develop the vision or the purpose of the practice, right? Or the business.
Okay.
So the vision of a business comes from the person who started the business.
Now, are you talking about like a mission statement?
I'm talking about a mission statement. I'm talking about a purpose, like this is what we do here. This is what we create here. Like if we had a bakery, there's a million different bakeries that I can
Sure.
go to. Some specialize in bread, some specialize in pastries.
Right.
Some of them even have chocolates and things like that I can buy there, right? So there's different visions for the same thing, right? In dentistry, there's also different visions for the same thing. The doctor has a vision on the type of dentistry they want to get done, how involved they want to be with insurances, how they want their patients treated,
Maybe what the outcome with patients is, like this is what we're going for with each patient.
Correct. Whether we want to do full treatment plans or partial treatment plans. Like I don't recommend partial treatment plans.
Right.
Right. But you cannot assume that people automatically know that what you're trying to create in your business is a healthy patient, not a healthier patient.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah, especially if I came from another office
Right.
And let's say the office I came from, because we've seen offices like this, which are all about, we're just doing what insurance covers.
Right.
Like, we'll leave active disease, but we're only going to do what insurance covers.
Correct.
We're out of insurance? Oh, sorry, we're not treating that tooth.
Correct. And if that's your vision, great.
No, what I'm saying is, let's say I'm in a practice like that.
Yes.
And I come work for your practice.
Yeah.
And your practice is, we get patients healthy. We're all about restoring full health, function, and aesthetic to a patient.
Yes.
And, we want to extend their lives and all this kind of stuff. Like,
Yes.
that's your mission. And I come from the insurance-driven practice.
Yes.
And I see that.
Yes.
And I go, okay, well, that's what we're about here.
Right.
If you don't tell me that, then I'm just going to figure we're all about doing insurance here, just like every other office I've been in.
Correct. And you run into problems. And the other thing is what if you hire somebody that has the philosophy that you only should be doing what insurances cover and should not be making the patient responsible for their own health?
So like
right?
some
Which means
kind of
that
mental
sometimes-
gymnastics where they figured that.
Huh?
It's funny because I've seen it. I've never understood it.
Listen.
I've seen it where someone gets into that frame of mind. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what the insurance company, and it's almost like someone forgot they were a doctor.
Well, that's exactly right.
Like, the insurance company is not the person who did the exam and took x-rays and knows what's actually going on with this patient. So to heck with
I don't
those
agree
guys.
with it because you're taking the patient's right to be responsible for their own health
Right.
away from them.
Right.
Right. And you're deciding that they're not going to be.
But let's say I'm your new associate,
Yes.
and I've got the mental gymnastics going on where that's just the way things should be.
Yes.
I'm just going to do what insurance covers because the insurance is everything.
Right.
And I come into your office.
Yeah.
Well, then what?
Well, if I have that vision clearly delineated and this person walks into my practice and the first thing that they see is my general policy manual and my vision's obviously in the general policy manual, we're immediately going to figure out that there's a problem. And by their actions, you can also see that there's a problem because the first time they roll around and only present what insurance covers and leaves the rest of the dentistry on the table, right? And we go back to, now I understand that this is how you treatment plan it, but this is the vision of the doctor and this is the kind of practice the doctor is trying to create. Same the office management trying to correct this with the associate, right? The associate, well, I don't agree with that, or I don't think that's the right thing. Okay, fine. Then this associate needs to find a practice where they have that philosophy and that's the vision. I mean, one of the most important things in a business is that everybody's on the same page, pushing towards the same goal, right? And if you have people pushing towards different goals, it's going to impede expansion, but also create disagreements, and just the harmony is going to be all wrong in that practice.
Well, because the idea is we're all going to the same destination.
That's
so if
right.
we're all trying to go 5 different ways, no one's going to get anywhere.
That's exactly right. So the doctor needs to lay out the vision.
Got it.
Where are we going?
All right.
And what is this supposed to look like? And what are the ground rules in the creation of this vision?
Got it.
And then the doctor also needs to allow the office manager to create an environment where people get rewarded for achievements towards that vision. Like, make it fun, make it games, make sure that the staff knows, like, whenever a patient really got healthy, we did a really good job. When we did really good educating patients on treatment for a day and our collections reflected that, right? Take them to lunch, give them bonuses,
Right.
make them share.
Well, it's interesting too. The testimonial videos, a lot of our clients will do those. Patient was really happy, pictures, video, whatever, put it on the website, YouTube, etc., TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is, it's good PR.
Yeah, it
It
is.
helps your marketing.
Yes.
It creates more social proof for people who are looking at your social media or your practice.
Sure.
But what I find is, in not a lot of cases does the doc or the OM make sure the staff sees those videos as well.
Which is probably more important because they feel like they're actually making strides
Yeah.
towards the vision.
And it reinforces that purpose or vision you're talking about.
That's exactly right. And they feel like they're attaining it, and it gives them the courage to maybe push a little bit harder with the next patient.
Right. Okay.
Right. So it's because they know that the outcome's going to be positive.
Got it.
So it's
that-
important that you do that. So those are the first 3.
That's the first 3. And I'll be able to recap them now because we haven't done 5, then I'll forget them. But we have appointing and making a functioning office manager.
Yeah.
We have creating policy and disseminating the vision for your practice.
That's
like
right.
putting it out there and laying it out, make sure everybody gets it. What's number 4?
Number 4 is you actually have to run your office manager.
So what
Right.
would that look like? So
So-
I'm an owner. Let's say you're the owner, I'm the OM.
Yes.
I'm running the business or whatever. What would our interaction look like?
Well, when a person's all alone, they're going to run into problems that maybe they need to talk to somebody about, right? Like I'm thinking about doing this kind of marketing, right? I don't have this girl's working out. This is what I want to do. And I'm not talking about a referral of responsibility to the owner
Or
where
if
the owner has
if
to
I was
make.
the office manager, I might go, I just lost a bunch of money on the Jets game because I had them by 7. I'm kidding. I'm just messing around. Sorry, that just randomly came in my head. It was a joke. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Could happen.
But those aren't business problems.
No, they're not.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen too much.
Anyway, but you need to meet with your office manager. You need to be there. I mean, I say supervise your office manager. I'm not talking about watching them.
Got it.
Right? I'm talking about meeting with them, right?
Yeah.
Taking a look at what goals they're laying out for the month, making sure that the plan that they have laid out for the month in order to achieve those monthly goals and quotas is good and solid. They're not forgetting anything. If they're struggling with something, that you're there for them, right? When an office manager, because sometimes what you see is a really good team between a doctor and an office manager, and suddenly that connection goes south.
Okay.
Right? It breaks apart. And it always boils down to there was so little communication between those two. Right? They never coordinated. They didn't make sure that any disagreements that they had were sorted out between them. They didn't make sure that the vision was expanded once the vision was attained. They didn't make sure that the help required on both sides was there. So you actually have to supervise and run and be there for your office manager.
And I know we don't want to fixate on time too hard.
No.
But for people who are listening now, let's say they have an office manager and they're thinking, okay, I want to make sure that we stay on the same page.
Yes.
What would sort of be like, what would be a minimum interaction? Would we get together every day for a couple minutes?
You don't even have to do that.
But
you
maybe
can
5
if you
minutes
want
in the
to.
morning just to go over what's happening?
5 minutes before the morning meeting, maybe. But what I would
Just as the doctor and the OM, because we're going to be together when we do our morning meeting.
correct.
But that's kind of the doctor's being the salesperson there and the manager's being the manager.
Right.
But maybe maybe first thing in the morning we get together. Okay, good. What are we getting done today?
Yeah, and I think that would be great. But as an irreducible minimum, there has to be a time set aside every week, like go to lunch.
And we go over statistics and all that kind of stuff.
That's exactly right. And don't do it in the office because you're always going to be distracted. Like people are going to want stuff. The phone's
Right.
going to ring. People have questions, right? A patient shows up unexpectedly. There's always going to be something. So get out of the office for a half an hour a week. I'm sure we could fit that in the schedule somewhere.
Sure.
Right? And have your executive meeting and go through the statistics of the week, go through the finances of the week, go through any personnel decisions, right? All the things that you need to discuss.
Right. Okay, good. I like it.
Yes.
So that was number 4, and I can't recite them because I can only recite 3 things. I
Well,
hit
we can
hit my
recite them
memory
at the
limit.
end.
I know it's fine. All right. So what's number 5?
Number 5 is control your finances.
Okay.
So that's something that you're never going to turn over to a manager. You can have an account where you have the money just to pay the bills, to practice bills in, and if you want your office manager to pay the bills out of that account, and you just transfer enough money to cover the overhead of the practice every month, that's totally fine. Your
Sure.
office manager, but that's more of a bookkeeper
Sure,
function.
they're being the bookkeeper.
Right. That's not really a CFO function, right? Where you're taking a look at how much money are we bringing in? How much money are we spending to bring that money in on personnel, marketing, equipment, all those things, right? And what's my return on that investment? Making sure that approving any expenditures above overhead, bonuses.
Got it.
Right.
So I'm never going to relinquish that financial director job where I'm in charge of overall business financial health.
No,
Got it.
no, not unless the office manager is your spouse.
Well, but even then,
Even then,
I think
you
that's
should know.
this is a loaded statement. I'll do like in a debate.
Yes.
Pass.
Well, what I'm saying is if it's your spouse, you can have them do some of those functions if you want to. That's totally fine.
Right.
But even in that scenario, you have to sit down with your spouse and go through the money. You have to know where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
All
agree.
the time.
I just was staying away from that one because we're spouses.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and yeah, folks,
And
I
you would
like to
hope-
continue to walk. So,
You would hope
yes.
that your spouse would not embezzle from you. Although I don't guarantee it.
pass. All right. So that's number 5.
Right. Control your finances.
So what's number 6?
Number 6 is you have to be on top of the statistics of the practice.
And how frequently should I be looking at these?
Well, I would know where the most important statistics of the practice are at daily.
And that's interesting. So can I just survey you on something?
Yes.
So, because I would think with that, I know any organization I've ever run.
Yes.
I know where we're at on a daily basis.
Correct.
Do I know it down to a penny? No, but I have a general idea of where the most important key metrics for the business are at.
Correct. So you can direct your attention and you crew towards that.
Exactly. Like, oh, whoa, we need to jump in with both feet over here, or that's
right.
going okay, right?
Yes.
But how often, when you talk to a newer client, I know with more salty clients who've been around for a while, they're pretty on it,
Oh, yeah.
right? But a newer client, how frequently, especially coming in for the first time, do they know where they're at for the month? Like when you say, how you doing this month so far?
I would say that
I mean, I know this isn't very scientific, but
maybe 10% is aware of where they're at, where some of these statistics are at. Like they'll usually know
production, collection, new
production,
patients.
not even new patients.
Really?
Usually they don't know new
Wow,
patients.
okay.
But they usually have an idea of production or collection month to date. That's maybe 10% of the time.
So 90%, you go, how are you doing month to date? And they go, I just don't know.
Correct. The maybe 10% knows exactly how much their production new patients and collections are monthly, right? The vast majority either doesn't know or has an idea of what they're doing monthly,
Wow.
but they do not know,
Wow.
right?
I mean, that's something they could just change right now, isn't it? People listening, if they don't know these things.
Well, you're not going to achieve a goal if you don't even know what the goal is or where you're at.
Well, also, if I'm I'm not an experienced sailor.
Yes.
My sailing is, using dinghies and water skiing, whereas you've actually sailed.
I have.
You haven't sailed across the North Atlantic, so
No.
to speak, but you haven't. So what I'm saying is, we haven't done like a long journey sailing per se. Although you're fairly experienced.
Yes.
But I would imagine if I'm taking a ship from, point A to point B and it's 2,000 miles, I don't know how frequently they're checking out where they're at.
I would think that you would look all the time where you're at.
Well, I would think so, because you don't want to end up on the rocks or somewhere you don't want to be.
That's exactly right.
So I guess the point is, because the sooner you find out you're going the wrong way, the quicker you can course correct.
That's right.
So yeah, if you're listening to this and you don't know where you're at on a daily basis, doesn't mean you have to be weird about it. Like, where are we at today or something like this, but you should know at the end of the day how much you've collected for the month, how much you've produced for the month, and where your new patients are at for the month.
Correct. And where your goal is, right? You have to set a goal as well. So where
Right.
you are in relation to your goal. Because it's interesting, because usually just putting attention on something improves the situation.
Good point. Sometimes you give a staff member a statistic graph and the graph goes up because they don't like looking at it down.
Right. Or if you as an owner doctor know, okay, you are running $10,000 behind in production on where you should be right now.
Right.
Right. Might make you spend that extra 5 minutes with that patient, and where that patient's a little wishy-washy, like, hey, can we do that next time? And you as a doctor know this shouldn't be done next time, but may have said in the past, like, do whatever you want.
Sure.
This time you might say, no, we really should do it now.
And then the patient does it.
Yeah, and you have to understand that improved statistics in the practice, all that it means is improved health for patients. There's nothing wrong with that,
I agree.
right? There's nothing wrong with that. So the more you produce, the more you collect, the more people you are helping getting healthy. Helping getting healthy, is that English?
No, that sounds fine. It's fine. It came out great.
So if your numbers are down, nobody won in that scenario is all I'm trying to say.
No, good point. Good point.
Right.
Good point.
And make sure your staff understands that.
Yeah, very good point.
Right. Make sure your staff understands that. And that was the last point.
So those are our 6 points.
Yeah.
So now I have them on a piece of paper, so
You
I don't have to
do.
recite them. So just as a recap, what are our 6 points? First one, appoint and get functioning an office manager. You have to lay out the vision for the business. You have to plan and review practice statistics. You have to run your office manager. You have to provide policy for the practice, and you have to control your finances. As you say, this is the irreducible minimum.
Right.
You would like to see, there's more to it. Obviously, we're not going to cover it in the podcast, but I think this was great.
But I'll tell you something, a lot of very successful practices that are part of the MGE team, right? This is all they do. They
Right.
don't even make it fancier than this.
Well,
and
that's
it
good.
works fine. I mean, the better you do this, the more beautiful your end result is going to be. But this is a good start.
Yeah, and I'll close it with this. we hear about accountability, right? I want my staff to be more accountable. I wish my treatment coordinator was more responsible or took more initiative, right? Well, what is accountability? It's owning what you do.
That's right.
And getting a decent end result.
It's really
right?
a different word for responsibility.
Sure, but you're also demanding a certain end result. If I hire somebody, I'm expecting them to do certain things.
Sure.
So shouldn't you place those same expectations that you place on your team on yourself
I think
as
that's
the owner?
a really good point.
Yeah. So I think that's what we leave you with this week. And
Yep.
Sabri, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
It was great to have you on. And of course, we'll have you on again a lot in the future. And folks, if you have any questions about MGE or want some help, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. That's all we got for you. Have a great week, and we'll see you the next episode.